Uwaga! Materiał, którego właśnie słuchasz, ma charakter wyłącznie rozrywkowy i informacyjny. Nie stanowi porady medycznej, ani nie zachęca do stosowania jakichkolwiek substancji. Wszystkie działania podejmujesz na własną odpowiedzialność, a autorzy podcastu nie ponoszą odpowiedzialności za skutki wykorzystania tych treści w praktyce. Jeśli temat jest dla Ciebie rażący, śmiało wyłącz, ale subskrypcję możesz zostawić. Hello and welcome in another English One podcast. Today's guest is Andrew Berry for the second time. Thank you for joining me. And what is up, man?
Well, first, thanks for having me, man. It's middle of the week, I'm probably like you. You're a little ahead of me, but you've probably finished up your day. But I'm kind of in the middle of it with check-ins and stuff. And I don't really train on Wednesdays, so it's one of my long work days, and I try to get podcasts and stuff in during then. So, but yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, do you have someone in Germany this weekend?
I don't have anybody in, I don't think I've ever had a German client. I've had some Austrian, I've had a couple Polish. I don't know if I've ever had a there's a German girl that I help out. Like she emails me and I just give her some tips and stuff, but I don't coach her. She says that when she preps, she wants me to coach her. But
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
no one this weekend.
Oh, okay. Because there's a quite a big event this weekend in
Coming
Germany.
up.
So yeah, so this is why I ask because that's going to be probably the one of the biggest and most probably controversial because there's the possibility that two a great guy might win, and if the one that I'm thinking of is gonna win, probably the guys from the outside, and especially for the Germany, is gonna tell everyone that this is just strict political, just because he just don't have just the invitation yet, and they probably give him that, and everyone probably knows what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Who do you like going into this show? If gun to your head, who do you pick? If
I think that definitely Ur's gonna win this.
I can't disagree. I
Yeah, that's crazy because if you asked me about that a week ago, I would said nah, not even chance. But
Yeah,
seeing
but
him
you
on
know what?
stage,
When classic guys like him, who's a classic bodybuilder, he's not just a classic physique guy. He was always a classic bodybuilder. He just volumized just a little bit, and we're all like, "Holy crap, he can hang with the big dogs. He's got the shape." The only thing I want to see a little differently is I'd actually like to see him a little less full because I feel like his separation was a little blurred, I guess I should say. Like his biceps didn't have the same exact look. Maybe that's some other compounds going in there that to try to inflate a little bit, but I feel like take what they took the other day and bring it back like 5%. I think that is an amazing physique.
but you know what strikes me the most? His stomach. It was perfect. It was looking
Hmm.
great, but it wasn't even as close to being so tight that classic physique guys have. Like 1 year ago, he has like a tiny little bit waist, and right now he has a tiny waist, but a proper bodybuilding heavyweight waist. And
Yeah.
this is something that's always a big question in our industry. What about those wastes? Because those guys are always thinking why they're growing. Is it the drugs? Is it GH? Is it the insulin? And this is just strictly muscle, guys. If you're gonna lose a 30 pound of muscle, you're probably gonna have tiny waist again.
Yeah. I mean, think about it this way. Like measure your waist when you first started bodybuilding, and let's say you were 200 pounds or 100 kilo or something like that.
Yeah,
Over the years, you put on, 50 to 60 pounds of real tissue over 10 years. Guess what? Muscle grows everywhere, your waist muscle. Because
yeah.
think about it, there's no way you're going to be able to support your upper body and your lower body connecting if those muscles in between did not get stronger and thus bigger in the process. So, yeah, no, I don't think it's just GH. I don't think it's just insulin. I don't think it's just food. I just think we're becoming larger human beings and everything gets bigger when you become larger.
Definitely. To be honest, I think that it's almost zero to none correlation with drugs per se. I think
Yeah.
it's mostly due the gut biome, like the flora, because the
Yep.
guys are eating shit and cheats and stuff like that, and overeat for a long period of time just creates the not best environment in our
Hmm.
guts. So this is the one thing, and the second part is like you said, just the structure. You have to build everywhere just to support your spine and everything.
Hmm.
Like if your body, if your upper body weighs more than you are weighting, like your whole body weighting 10 years ago, is probably wiser to build some muscle around the
Yeah.
midsection.
I mean, well, I use the analogy too. Like, imagine when you first started doing leg workouts, whether it was squats or hack squats, and imagine the weight you're using then versus the weights you're able to use once you're 5 to 10 years in the game. And I imagine, like, if you could think of an analogy, your waistline is more like a skinny little palm tree when you first start out.
Mhm.
Well, wouldn't you want a big oak tree to be able to support
Yeah.
what you're moving? I mean, when you got hundreds of pounds on your back, and in some cases, some guys that are getting close to 850 or 900 pounds on the hack squats and stuff. I mean, I would want an oak tree supporting me, something a little thicker to make sure I don't get hurt because otherwise your spine's going out your back.
Yeah, the other thing is all those guys who just wanted to have small waist, and yet and they don't think that the building of the muscle around the spine is going to support it. But then with the if they wanted to do something like a PR for a squat, they are just wearing belt to support
Yeah,
the the
yeah.
midsection. Isn't just like artificial muscle, this belt.
Uh, yeah, I'll tell you what, man, the belt doesn't do everything for you. You know what I mean? I
Yeah,
see the belt as just giving, returning the intragastric pressure, just putting an external pressure, pushing back inwards to help support the spine. But yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what, I've hurt myself squatting with the belt and without
uh,
it. So you know what I mean? I think the belt's more of a like a safety blanket more than
it's
anything.
psychological, yeah, but the belt is for those guys who are know how to use the bracing properly.
Yeah, yeah,
To be honest, because we have something that it is scientifically proved that you have something like, I don't know how to say it in English, but actually, if you squeeze one muscle more, the rest of your body reacts neurologically a little bit more to the like electric signals. So you can
yeah,
probably create a little bit more of the strength throughout the whole body by
yeah,
doing this. So this is why those power lifters are using those pressure and pushing to the belt. But this is not bodybuilding helpful, because if you're pushing into the belt, you're probably creating a even more muscle around the waist
yeah. No,
area. Yeah.
I
So
agree. No, I agree for sure, for sure.
yeah. So being on the subject of creating better or worse physique, the last time, because for those guys who are not watched the second part with Andrew, we've recorded probably around a year ago or maybe 2 years ago, something like that. Was a
Yep.
quite a long time ago, but we finally managed to get together again and record the second part. And the first part was like managed it is going to be managed like the same way. So we were talking about me wanted to transition into a new category, so like jump over the weight class basically, so from heavy to super heavy weights, and
Mm.
we managed to do that. We just finished the off season together. I'm looking great, obviously, because I'm working with you, and I am not overly fat because I'm working with you. I am healthy because I'm working with you, and everything is set up perfectly. So how we would start into transition into the prep in that perfect scenario. So you have a client, you work with him for entire year, you know what he's doing, you know everything about him, he's perfectly healthy, but you still wanted to transition into a maybe some sort of health phase, maybe do some sort of deload or anything. How do you manage this?
Yeah, okay, so let's pretend like we just got done a really nice blast and he's at his peak off-season weight. And let's say the show is 30 weeks away. Okay. So for me, that means we got 10 weeks to make sure you're as healthy as possible. And I'm really big on always making sure blood pressure, and blood sugar are always in control. So if we've done a good job in the off season, those are already pretty well managed, whether through lifestyle, supplement, or even some prophylactic drugs, whether it's telmisartan or, metformin for the blood sugar, whatever it might be. Okay. So I usually go into some form of a deload for 2 weeks because I want to give the body a break before we kind of get into what I call the pre-prep, the 6 to 8 weeks before we really start dieting. So what I do is about 2 weeks where 1 week I want you out of the gym, taking care of stuff like maybe you had to paint a room in your house. Okay, now's a good time so you're not stressed of, oh, I got to go to the gym and I can't fit this in. Now's a good time to just take care of all that stuff and try to get that shit out of the way before you get really focused for your prep, right? And I'll do some stuff like I'll lower protein. I'll use a phase 1 and 2 liver detox supplement with people. I pull all stimulants like caffeine. I pull all their bodybuilding supplements like creatine, aminos, all that kind of stuff. And I really just want to get the body completely healthy. And I pull those supplements because I want to give the liver a break. Your liver does everything. Everything runs through the liver. If I can give the liver a bit of a break, now I'm setting the athlete up to have better conversion of T4 to T3, right? I'm setting the body up to better recycle estrogen and other hormones that we don't need. So it really just kind of sets the stage for a good prep. And then over the next 8 weeks, I'm probably going to start cleaning things up. Sometimes people like to have labels, like whether am I in prep with like the quotation marks.
Yeah.
To me, it's like you're always in prep the minute you get off stage. It's just you're eating more or you're taking less drugs, you're taking more, whatever it might be. Because deep down, the worst thing to me is like an athlete that does a prep and then they just disappear for like 6 months and then they come back to you when they want to prep again. You're like, well, I don't know what you're doing and I don't know what's going on in your body. I don't know if you're healthy. I don't know what you've been taking for gear. So anyway, right around like 8 weeks out, I might pull free meals right out. Or I might say, hey, instead of giving you the choice of a free meal, I'm gonna say you can do 8 rolls of sushi or 5 rolls of sushi or something like that. So at least I know from a controlled standpoint exactly what they're eating on that extra high calorie day, right? And from there, I'm probably going to start cleaning things up just a little bit. I might pull a few calories. I might introduce a little bit of cardio, really just get him to a nice, clean, tidy position before we really start the prep. Because, like the worst thing in the world is when you got a guy that's 18 to 20 weeks out and he's fat. And you're like, okay, we literally just got to drop body fat. We're not going to be able to build any muscle during this prep. We're always going to be a little bit behind. I'm not going to be able to get you ready early and then feed you into the show. Because in my opinion, the best scenario is to have an athlete 95% ready at 3 to 4 weeks out, because then you can flip the switch, pull the cardio back, add more food, and the body really peaks. And that's what peaking is to me. It's not peaking to me isn't that last 5 or 6 days into the show. Peaking is like for me the last 3 weeks into the show, because if you can get a nice adrenal response where you're lowering cortisol, you're lowering the stress on the legs, so the legs are nice and full by pulling cardio out. It's just going to yield a much sharper and fulfilling look on stage.
Great, great. Okay, so you set me up properly, and then how much do you wanted me to take for like how much week you wanted to leave into that prep, like 20 weeks, 16 weeks, or it depends on how I basically gonna look, because we might pull those cheat meals and stuff like that, but you still might not seeing the results you wanted to see me. So for example, you might think that 20 weeks is gonna be enough or 16 weeks is gonna be enough, but then we see that probably we need a little bit more time. So how do you like to manage it, and what's the like the your safest bet on how long you need with a guy?
So people that I'm working with year round, in my mind, prep is starting at 20 weeks out. So, and like I said, we've already done a little bit of cleanup to where they're in a good position. Um, you know, I can think there's a big difference. Like you probably get this too with people that come to you just for contest prep and they're 18 to 20 weeks out, right? And you're like, dude, you're 300 pounds and you're in a 225 pound weight class. Like, you got to lose 75 pounds. Like, this is going to be work. That to me is not a good scenario. And I'll take those people on because I do like a challenge. But it's like, you just know a prep's going to be much better when a guy is, under 15% body fat at 20 weeks out, especially if you know his body. So yeah, right off the gate at 20 weeks out, I'll probably reintroduce PEDs. It's not always the case, but I really think that, well, but the way I utilize supplements and other health modalities, I'm not scared to run somebody for, 20 weeks into a show or into a contest prep and then maybe have a nice post-show rebound for 8 to 10 weeks afterwards. Because that's kind of what I'm thinking. Okay, we're going to be on PEDs for about 30 weeks. Unless there's a scenario where athlete's got to qualify at a show, but then his national show is, 10 or 12 weeks later. Then it gets a little different, and then we got to bridge some things a little differently. But yeah, in terms of like the diet, right off the bat, and of course everybody's different, right? For some people, with what we're doing right before that pre-prep phase, we just need to continue that, and we need to ride that out. Um, One thing I do like to do that I never used to like to do is I introduce trenbolone right for like the first 4 weeks of the prep, fairly low dose because I want to see I want to if we're hurting I want to improve insulin sensitivity. I want to increase the nutrient partitioning, the nitrogen retention, and it's really nice when an athlete kind of starts to see some progress right out of the gate.
Yeah.
The shoulders get a little rounder, a little fuller. They're stronger again right out of the gate. I feel like that kind of puts progress into the foresight. It's kind of dangling that little carrot in front of you that you can go and chase.
Yeah, so it's like kind of a mental game for you, like a mental strategy. That I like it.
Yeah, I mean, well, everyone likes to see progress, right? So if you can see a little bit of progress right out of the gate, at least physically, I feel like you're all in, you're invested, and athletes are less likely to pull out of preps when they're seeing some regular results.
Yeah, especially that if you're pulling out some PEDs and you clean on that clean out phase, some guys might struggle mentally. Those they might lose a lot of strength because I you probably can lose shit. So like if you manage everything properly, you don't need those PEDs to keep with
Well,
your strength probably.
you
But
know what?
it's
Let me touch on
mental.
that.
Yeah.
Let me touch on that because that is the number one thing I hear, like when you're talking to people, like, "Oh yeah, I'm down in strength, but I've been cruising for 8 weeks now, or I
Yeah.
haven't." To me, I'm like, you're kind of a pussy because in my mind, it was always strength is a mindset. And I don't know about you, but I only lost like maybe 5% of my strength when I pulled the PEDs. I mean, I'm not talking, there's some days that you hit some record numbers, right? And that's, you're probably running multiple orals at the same time as you are
Yeah.
your normal PED loads. But it's like when someone says they automatically think they're going to lose a lot of strength, it's like, no, for me, it was always you lose a little bit of fullness in your look and maybe you don't look as impressive. But it's a rep here and there. And if you keep that mindset all through your off season when you're not using high PEDs, I guarantee it's going to translate to a better prep.
Man, you know what? The first show that I've done was done naturally, and I'm preparing myself at the time having zero to none knowledge. I probably was at minus knowledge, to be honest,
Yeah.
because at that time I was doing crazy thing with myself, and believe it or not, by 5 weeks out of the show, and my contest prep was almost 10 months.
Okay.
So it was a really hard prep. I'm eating probably around 1,500 calories, doing a cardio 6 times to 7 times a week, working 12 hours shifts on the weekends, making a food for the people, kebabs.
Okay.
And I was on a daily basis, I was on a university, so I was studying.
Oh, okay.
And also, I was doing personal training stuff on the side,
You
and
sound just like
also,
me. That's literally what
also,
I did in
yeah,
college.
and also, I was on a physiotherapy university, so I have 3 times a week swimming pool classes, 3 times a week, physical activities with playing games and stuff like that,
Uh-huh.
and 2 times a week gymnastics or something like that. So imagine that everything at 1,500 calories for almost 10 months.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, 5 weeks out, I was doing PRs on squats.
I do believe it because that was my first
Yeah.
prep too. I mean, I was
Yeah,
in the same boat. I was in
and
college, I was
those,
working, and I was still lifting as heavy as I could.
and then you have those guys on shit ton of PEDs
Yeah.
that probably using twice as much as they need to,
Hmm.
and they are 4 weeks into prep, and they are losing strength. This is bizarre.
It just mindset. It's
Yeah,
really
it
just
is.
mindset. Yeah, that or it's incredibly poor programming on their coach's part. But I don't even know what mistakes I could make in a coaching plan that would make someone lose strength when adding gear in when you're only 4 weeks into a prep. Like you're only a couple pounds down, it, you shouldn't be fatigued yet. You shouldn't be overtrained. So, and in your situation, going for, 40, 45 weeks into a prep, you were overtraining. Like, that your body, like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It just shows you that the human mind can overcome a lot if you just have a goal and you're like, I'm not taking no for an answer.
yeah, definitely, definitely. And this is something that is it's really crazy, just because I think I hate when the people have those mindset, like you said before. You said that for you, being on prep is being like is basically holier. And
Yeah.
I think this is how the bodybuilders should think. Doesn't
Hmm.
matter if you are on a deficit or on a surplus of calories. Doesn't matter if you are on PEDs or not. You are still striking for progress, no matter what. And thinking in terms of, oh, right now I'm losing, and right now I'm gaining, is the stupidest thing that I ever could imagine in my head. If I was thinking like that, I would probably stop bodybuilding, because there's no fun if losing anything.
Yeah.
There's no fun in losing.
That's a good point. No, yeah, it would suck the fun right out of it. But
Yeah,
yeah, I think here's the big thing I find. If you were to take all the PEDs away, or if you were to take social media away, how many people would still be doing bodybuilding as dedicated as they are, right? And I think the social media one's a bigger one, right? If you took away Instagram today
yeah,
and YouTube, how many guys would still be in the gym training as hard as they could, trying to better themselves and improve a physique? And I think that number's pretty small.
yeah. It is. It is. That will be probably only some swag talking to himself at the gym.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, let's moving forward. So, how about the training? Do you change anything in the training during the contest prep, like right away, or maybe just at the end, just basically based on how the people are recover from from the impact of the training?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I'm going to get client feedback, right? If someone tells me that their legs are still beat up 7 or 8 days later, maybe we need to pull back on the volume a little bit. I always want to keep intensity high, but maybe we got to pull back on the volume just a little bit. So that's like a red flag for me if the athlete's body part is still sore 6, 7 days later. That needs some changes. But how I address training overall really is okay. You have your last stage picks, and we know where your weaknesses are. So we've been planning around them. Now, let's say an athlete has two weaknesses. Let's say both their legs and back, right? Well, we can't really put all of our energy into both legs and back at the same time. So in my mind, I'm going to divide it up into blocks where for 8 weeks we're putting the majority of our energy into the legs, and then we might take a 2 week break, just some recovery training, and then we're going to do another 8 week block where we're more focused on improving the legs. Okay, or I'm sorry, the back. So we'll kind of alternate those. I'm still keeping that same mindset as we go through the contest prep. Okay. So, and I'm a firm believer that the training that builds the muscle is the training that keeps the muscle. So the only time I start pulling things back is about 15 days out. And with that, it's literally like, okay, I want you to pull one set from, two or three of your exercises. I like to pull leg training, hard leg training, usually about 2 weeks before the show to really give them a chance to volumize, let them come back to life. And all that depends also on how much cardio we've had to do. If an athlete hasn't been doing any cardio, or we already pulled it, then I'm going to have them train their legs hard up until 7 days before the show. But but yeah, really, it's just we start to pull things back 10 to 14 days. Workouts, I want them a little bit shorter. I tell people this, I want pump and pose workouts where you get a nice pump and then I want you to spend more time posing because a lot of bodybuilders are bad about practicing their posing
Yeah.
until the very end when they look good. And so it's like, all right, now's the time to do, 5 to 6 rounds of posing after your workout and really build up a sweat and try to build some endurance there. So that's really what I do with training.
Okay, okay. So, do you like to cut calories slowly at the beginning, or do you do something like a very huge drop at the beginning, and maybe you just incorporate something like a bigger loading days, or frequently refeeds or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, so I would say I probably start things, and it depends on the athlete, but probably a little on the slower side where they're still using a training and a non-training day like plans, right?
Yeah.
Maybe in some cases we still have a really high day on like, let's say we're trying to bring up the back. I might be increasing calories on those days, but generally it's a training, non-training day plan. And then at some point, I typically will transition into a low and high day plan, meaning regardless of whether you're training or not, these are your base days, and then I might say, okay, on the fourth day, throw in this high day of 3 times your carb count. Let's say an athlete's on 200 grams of carbs at that point. I'm going to say, okay, let's go between 600 and 800 grams of carbs today. And then I want to see what happens over the next 4 days when we go back on low days. And then I'll adjust. Okay, are we going to be doing like a longer low push in terms of like 5 or 6 low days, or do you only need like 2 or 3 low days before we do a high day? And I just kind of keep that carb cycling going just like that. Typically into the show. And then a big thing, and I think coaches can pick up on this, is when the athlete's lean enough, somewhere around 6 weeks out, and you're doing these high days, it's really important to do pictures every day because
Yeah.
then you can see, okay, what day do they look their best? Are they someone that just doesn't hold water when you load them? Okay, maybe the next morning, perfect. So now in your mind, you're like, I can load this guy pretty hard on Friday before the show. If there's someone that holds water for like 2 or 3 days, you might say, okay, I need to load this guy Tuesday, Wednesday, and then pull back to maintenance on Thursday, Friday. And by Saturday, that's going to yield his best look in terms of dryness. So I think you can glean a lot of information from these refeeds and the cycling of calories that you do.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so do you cut your calories first from the carbs, fats, or maybe protein?
Yeah, that's a good question. So typically, I'm probably going to pull some fats out right out of the gate. Let's just say, for an example, you have a super heavyweight guy and he's somewhere around 100 grams of fat a day. I'm probably going to pull it, I'm going to pull 25 grams of fats out, bring him down to 75 and just see what happens. Um, I do always want to keep a base level of fat in there. So, at some point, we'll probably get down to 40 to 50 grams of fat a day just over time, making different food choices from, say, beef to chicken or beef to fish, salmon to whitefish or something like that. So those things just kind of happen on their own. But then I would say over the last half to 2/3 of the prep, it's more carbohydrate manipulation for sure.
Okay. And the protein stays the same till the end, or do you like to do something like maybe swap some protein from the carbs at the end to just improve the performance at the gym?
So yeah, I mean that's all over the map, right? Because there's a lot of times where I'm doing really high refeeds with people. Like let's say a guy's getting up to 1,200 grams of carbs and he's on 350 grams of protein. I'm definitely going to pull some of his protein that day because it's just
Yeah.
not needed at that point. It's just going to slow down digestion. Um, in terms of like going into the final week, like over those last 2 days, I'm probably pulling protein back by 50%. And usually like the day before the show, if they were eating, somewhere between 6 and 8 ounces, they might be eating 2 to 4 ounce portions of protein. And then the day of the show, they might not be eating any protein at all.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So how about the PEDs changes in on a contest prep? Just because some guys like to run almost basically the same stuff probably till the 6 weeks out, 8 weeks out, maybe 4 weeks out if someone are looking great or something like that. And some coaches are doing the changes right away. So from the get-go, they are switching all the non-drill ones to the DHT there it is, or just lowering the tests just to make more DHT tests ratio higher and stuff like that. Do you like to do something like to do something like that, or just keep it constant. Let's say that I was running test nandrolone and bolderon, so your favorite combo, at the end of my book. Then we pull it out and then we reintroduce it and we leave it, or you will not reintroduce those things.
Yeah, no, so I think I do things a little differently now. Back in the day, I used to always start preps with like a test, an EQ, and an nandrolone, whether it's tren or NPP, right? And now I'm at the point where, I got a lot of higher level guys, and I ask them, like, hey, what do you like? Like, what have you had good experiences with? And really, what I want to hear is, what have you had the least amount of side effects with? Okay. Because if I'm asking someone to take something and it's making him mental to where he's getting in a fight with his wife every day, or he might get fired at work, it's not going to work out. Right. So I really pay attention to people, to what their experience is with drugs. But, and I don't know how much you guys have experienced this, but there's a major shortage in DHTs, in terms of
It
primobolan,
is.
masteron. Yeah, I just got some good news today that I think things are going to clear up here really, really soon, probably by mid-September, which we're getting close to right now.
Yeah.
But because a lot of guys, lately we've been doing a lot of testosterone, primobolan, and then, like I said, maybe start the cycle with some tren, and then after that 4 weeks, we might drop the tren and move to NPP. And then about 12 weeks out, we'll layer in Masteron. So we're talking test, Primobolan, Masteron. And then usually around somewhere in the 6 to 8 week out mark, we'll reintroduce the Trenbolone. And then around, I like to save the orals for later. So usually around 4 weeks out, I'm going to add in Winstrol, Proviron. And then, as we get closer, maybe about 20 days out, I'm going to throw in some halo testing. And then other drugs, it's on a case by case basis, but like injectable Superdrol, injectable Anadrol, it all depends on like if the athlete has experience with those, because you can utilize some of these compounds to really create a nice 3D look that they didn't have before. I can think of recently had a guy that looked really good with injectable Superdrol, while we were loading him. So yeah, it's a little over the map, right? Because everyone's a little different. Some guys might like Anavar over Winstrol. Some guys might swear they look better with Winstrol over
Yeah.
Anavar. So it's a little bit of taking their word for it, and then, but I'm not afraid to say, hey, I don't think this is the look. Let's do this a little differently. Um, so yeah.
Okay. Okay. Makes sense. What
One thing,
about
let me
GA?
ask you, let me run on this though. One thing I think I do a lot differently now than I used to, regarding, say, Trenbolone. Back in the day, it used to be okay, and I'm thinking 10 years ago when I used to prep people, we might throw in 400 milligrams at 5 or 6 weeks out. And then as we get closer, we might layer it up to 100 milligrams of Tren Ace a day, right?
Yeah.
I've been having a lot of great results just using 10 to 15, maybe 20 to 25 milligrams of trenbolone, going into the show. Athletes not getting side effects. They're not getting the trensomnia. They're not, cheating on their wives. They're not, doing anything that they shouldn't, that's going to be a negative side effect. And they're still getting the same positive benefits. And I can tell you, I know of several top 10 Olympians that are kind of on this trend right now themselves. So,
Yeah. I will have to say the same. I will have to say the same. I right now I don't think that I have any of my guys using more than 300 mix of tren weekly, and then we're talking about super heavyweights, guys.
yeah, yep,
Like
exactly.
a standard dose for a competitor, like is I think 140 to 210 mix, so 20 to 30 a day
Yep.
is
Yep.
like a enough dose for the end of the prep. I would say
Yeah.
is totally
Well, and well,
totally good dosage.
let me ask you, like in years past, would you have put a guy on a little bit more, like maybe 400 or 500, 600 milligrams a week?
900.
900. Wow. Okay. So it's
900.
funny.
I was using myself 900, and I was weighing around 85 kilo, I think that back then.
Okay.
So that was I don't want to lie you, but I think that was the dose. I remember that we use a lot of tren because in Poland that was just typical. We use aldactone like 2 weeks before the show, and we upped it to 300-400 daily.
Wow.
So that was the crazy time here in Poland back then.
Yeah.
But right now we have some better knowledge, and I don't think many guys using Dactyl at all right now. We are switching into to a better better diuretics, just
Yeah, I
a
mean
tiny bit of yeah.
the problem with aldactone that I found is that you get to those levels, right? And because it's blocking aldosterone, well, now you can't reabsorb sodium when you want to
Yeah.
fill a guy out. So it's like there's a reason why the guys that really abuse the aldactone really look flat on stage. It's 'cause they can't fit. You could fit as many carbs as you want at them, but it's not creating glycogen and it's not storing in the muscle tissue. So I think we just know better now.
Yeah. Do you recognize the story? The best food that's filling me out are burgers and fries, coach. You know
Who's
why?
that?
Because everyone back in the day, because they are using
Oh, the
such
aldactone.
a
Yes.
lot of adductone that they probably have to increase their sodium by
Yeah.
100 times normal just to do anything with that, to
Well,
be honest.
it's funny you bring that up because a couple years ago I was sitting there with he's an old pro, Jerry Scalisi, and he's from the States here, and I'm like, and I always like to listen to the older guys because he's probably 25, 30 years older than me, and we were sitting there watching a show together, and I'm like, so tell me, teach me something. Like, what do you think we do differently, right or wrong, versus what you guys do or what you guys did back in your day? And he goes, okay, first off. He's like, you guys abuse the PEDs way more than we ever did. Like the trend doses, he was like, if we could find Parabolin, it was maybe 2 ampules a week. That was tops, right? He goes, but now the diuretics, we abuse the diuretics way more than you guys ever could. He's
Yeah.
like you mentioned, 2 weeks out, aldactone, 5 days out, starting hydrochlorothiazide, and then the last 2 days using
Lasix.
injectable Lasix or Dimidex or one of the other ones, and on top of that, cutting your water on like a Wednesday. He's like, I don't know how all of us have kidneys today,
And they are stop using sodium as well.
and they weren't using any sodium. That's right.
Yeah,
Yep.
because the salt is holding the water.
Yeah.
Everyone knows that.
Of course.
Yeah, I've heard the stories here in Poland that guys back in the day, back then, like in early 90s, 20s, maybe they just stopped drinking for 3 days earlier
Yeah.
before the
Yeah.
show. Just, that was how is that even possible? I can't even imagine. Yeah, that
Well,
was.
I mean, my first bodybuilding show that I did, it was natural. It was a NABF show about 20 something years ago. And I remember it was still some of those old methods where I wasn't supposed to have any salt from 6 weeks out, right? And then with my water, we had me on 3 gallons of water leading into the Wednesday before the show. And then Tuesday it was 2 gallons. Or, I'm sorry, Thursday it was 2 gallons. And then Friday it was no gallons. It was zero water, other than like a couple sips to get your pills in. And of course, I look like shit, because it goes against everything your body physiologically wants to do and needs to do to peak. But I guess you have to experience that time of bodybuilding to understand the hardcore nature of it. Because think about it, restricting water for
Yeah.
2 days, like with the amount of food we eat, you need water to process that, to go to the bathroom and everything. So we
Yeah.
are some like a different kind of breed, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. Can I ask, what was the craziest thing you do yourself during the peak week?
Oh, craziest thing. Let's see. I don't really have any crazy peak week stories because, when I really got back into bodybuilding again, I had John Meadows in my corner.
Yeah.
And John Meadows is a very common sense approach, right? It's like if you do a peak with John Meadows, it's going to be the most boring peak you if you're expecting bells and whistles and fireworks and all these different compounds. Diuretics, you're not using them. It's really just it's a very straightforward thing. But I will say the craziest thing I've done in prep. Okay, I was on a zero carb diet because I was a little bit behind, and I'd been on zero carbs for like something like 30 to 40 days straight. Maybe I had one refeed or something in there because my body it was responding to it, but I needed to keep doing it. And I'm big on insulin, right? So I was using intra-workout insulin still without any carbohydrates. Now people are like, "What the hell? That's the stupidest thing." And in some cases it might be, but my thought process was, okay, I'm going to take just a tiny bit of insulin in my intra-workout, which was just aminos, no carbs,
Yeah.
and I'm going to push any circulating glucose that I have back into the muscle tissue so I get a nice pump. But I'm also going to clear my blood sugar a lot quicker. So when I do my cardio afterwards, I'm going to burn more body fat. And I did. Like it was actually a really good rapid fat loss method. But I drove myself down. My blood sugar was 28, which I don't. Do you guys do milligrams per
Yes,
deciliter?
yes,
Okay.
28 is sour.
Okay. So you know that that's pretty low. Like
That's
most,
probably you should supposed to be dead by now.
not dead, but
Or
like
in coma. In
I
coma.
was
Yeah.
very like if you were to talk to me, my wife Rachel was like you're slurring your words and you look like you were drunk. And the crazy thing is I actually drove because I drove myself to a store because at that point I realized I needed to drink a Coke. Like I drank a Coca-Cola like really quick because I was like if this isn't well, here's
Yeah.
what I do. I test my blood sugar and then I test it again 5 minutes later. And if it's going back up slow a little bit, I'm like, okay, I can get home. I'll eat my post-workout meal. If it's still going down, then I'm like, okay, I'm in danger. I need to drink some sugar really quickly. So I drank some sugar. That I would say that's the one and only time I ever cheated on my diet, if you get what I'm saying.
Statystyki podpowiadają mi, że duża część osób oglądających ten kanał wciąż go nie subskrybuje. Dlatego jeżeli należysz do tego grona, zasubskrybuj już teraz oraz wpadaj na naszego Discorda. Link znajdziesz w opisie tego filmu. Zapraszam Cię również do wspierania ruchu Zapierdalać Trzeba poprzez zakupywanie merchu oraz szerowanie, udostępnianie i lajkowanie. Wielkie dzięki i wracamy do materiału.
Yeah, but you were basically saving your life at that point. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
I think
I
it's
called.
justified.
Well, I called John Meadows up and I'm like, hey, so I've been doing this little instant thing and he's like, okay. He's like, I didn't know that. And I'm like, yeah, I am. And he's like, okay, so what's your blood sugar? I'm like, it's 28 right now, and I think I'm gonna drink a soda. And he like spit out whatever meal he was eating. He's like, 28. He's like, go drink a soda right now, like right this moment, and then call me
Yeah.
back in 10 minutes to let me know you're alive. He was pretty worried, but I don't know. I was used to being very hypoglycemic. Like for me, during a lot of preps, 50 to 60 was not a big deal. So, and I know the difference between being 50 to 60 and being 40 and being 30. So I knew that I was pretty low at that point. Because there is a slightly different feeling from being just slightly hypo versus really hypo, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't even know because I wasn't checking back then what was my glucose, but I remember one time that I barely get to the home because I was almost blind
Yeah.
and I was pouring sweat so much that
Yep.
I can't even take off my shirt because it was so drenched in a sweat. And I don't even remember what I've ate back then, but that was definitely the first thing that I've grabbed in my house because I was so scared that I'm gonna die. That
Yeah.
that was crazy. And the crazy thing that I've done was losing, I don't remember exactly, but it was something around 7 to 9 kilo in one day. And that
Whoa.
was after 3 days of like losing the weight rapidly because we have to make weight. And I remember I took 4 diazide
Oof.
in a one day. I don't drink any water. I don't eat anything back then. I was 2 times in a sauna. I I
Jesus.
was doing I was driving with a shit ton of clothes and
Yep. Heat
and
turned
jacket
on.
and stuff like that, heat turn on, yes. And then I would go and do the cardio, and I was so dehydrated that believe me or not, but I make the weight and I just go home. I didn't sign into a show. I
You
just
could do
forget
it.
about it. No, I
Oh,
just
you
forget.
forgot.
Yeah, I was so happy that I make the weight
Huh.
that I just go home.
Did they let you compete or no?
Yeah, they let me compete because we have something like you have to be in the club or something like that to
Yeah.
make it happen. So the guy from my club was just call the guys and they make it happen. But that was crazy.
That's
Yeah,
wild. Yeah,
that
you
was
were
wild.
delirious. You were delirious at that point.
Yeah,
That's
but I was
wild.
so happy because I was such a weak pussy because I was begging the guy to let me in because I was 1.1 over the weight. And I was
Oh,
begging him, God, please let me go. He says no. So I go back into the sauna, come
Jesus.
back again, make weight, and I was so happy. I was thanking him just because he made me better back then.
You know
He
it's
made me a better
crazy.
bodybuilder. Yeah.
We know it's crazy though too though. That story could have gone a different direction with you getting hurt, right? And does he as a promoter or the guy who's checking you in, does he want to let a guy slide because he's point 0.1 over the scale? You know what I'm saying? Like he knows you would have dropped it if you just kept on walking a couple minutes or spit some gum out or spit some spit out, took another piss somehow. Um, that's where the danger gets in when guys are like really trying to make that weight and the guy's like, no, you can't. And then you go back and do another sauna or another diazide, you know?
On one point, yes, but on the second, I think that there's a rules. And
Yeah.
I think that if we're gonna start to slip those guys just only 1 point over, then only
Yeah.
2 point over, then
Yeah. I
only a
get you.
half kilo over, only a 2 kilo over, who cares?
What
35 pounds over, who cares?
well, wait till you get to the pro league because they basically ask you like, what's your height? Okay, you could be this. If you're in classic, they're like, what height do you want to be? Oh, okay, and then they make sure you're that height in a lot of cases.
What?
I'm not going to name names, but
Okay,
I've seen
that's
several times.
understandable.
I've seen several times where guy goes up and says, "No, I'm 5'10", not 5'9". Like, okay. Oh yeah, you do get that extra 2 pounds. Okay, you made weight. Good. Sign off the
I've
sheet.
I've competed in a different federation back in the days, and there was those check-ins when I've making weight and struggling and get there, and I was so pissed that I not eating for a whole day or something like that, and they asked me what category you are wanted to compete, and I tell him, he says, okay,
Just like
that's
that.
it, that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Why'd you suffer so hard if you just knew you had to show up
uh,
and sign a piece of paper? Well, now you
yeah.
never got to make weight again, right? So that's got to be a relief.
Yeah. Okay. So the next question was GH. What do you think about the GH on a contest prep? Because as we know, the GH is going to do a lot of cool things when it comes to the burning fats. So there are two types of coaches. The more is more, and the less is more. What kind of coach you are?
I guess I would say I'm in between because it all depends on the person, right? Like if I've got an endomorphic bodybuilder who has thicker skin, I'm not running a lot of growth hormone with them. I'll give an example. Like let's say someone like Carlos Thomas Jr. Okay,
Yeah.
he unbelievable physique, round muscle bellies, and this is something I told him too recently. Um, but his issue is he just can't get into crazy condition, right? He doesn't bring that
Yeah.
trademark condition we want to see on a pro stage, and I think a lot of that has to do with his skin thickness and the way his body holds onto water, and some of that I think is GH related. So if you're a physique like that, we're probably pulling your growth hormone pretty quickly, maybe 5, 6 weeks out, or we're using just very little doses. If you're someone like me who's just a skinny tall fuck, it's more is better. Okay. I mean, I remember running a bottle of Serostim a day for 40 days straight into a show. Didn't hurt my look one bit, didn't hold water, and I volumized and just looked rounder and fuller and better. So to answer your question, I think I'm somewhere in the middle. It all depends on the person. One thing I do like to do is pull GH around 2 weeks out, but then I like to add it back in the night before the show. Usually a fairly nice dose, maybe 10, 15 units, to help with just a little bit more muscle fullness. And there's usually not enough time to where the athlete's going to start holding water at that point the next day. So sometimes I'll add it in the morning of the show. Just depends.
Okay. Okay. So, what is the best time, in your opinion, to incorporate fat burners? Like, then, or maybe I'm not gonna name the names. You just tell me what do you like to use because there's a lot of shit, especially right now with the slew, with the
Mhm.
everything out there with mitochondria upregulation things and peptides. So maybe you are just have a fresher and maybe like a better approach to the fat burners, and I don't want to like suggest you anything.
Influence. You don't want to influence my
Yeah,
position. Oh,
yes,
okay.
of course.
Yeah, I mean, the old school clenbuterol yohimbine, I'm a big fan of. I like athletes to do cardio fasted, and I like to make sure we're putting clen and yohimbine in there before. And then as far as like other things, you know, I'm a big believer in the slew. I started using that almost a year ago, and I saw immediate results without changing any other variable in my own plan from cardio or decreasing food. I'm looking at myself and I'm like, I'm getting tighter every day. And then I started incorporating it in my wife's plans, and she started dropping 0.3 pounds every day. So every third day she's down about a pound without any changes to her plan. So I am a big believer in SLU. Most of my athletes are using SLU, but again, I don't necessarily see that as just a fat burning supplement. I see that as a longevity or like a anti-aging product. So I wouldn't be surprised if Big Pharma comes in and tries to steal it and produce it like they do with like the GLP drugs, right?
Yeah.
Um, Obviously GLPs have become a big thing, tirzepatide and retatrutide. I've been using those with people for sure. There's no doubt about it. I don't like to use it to crush hunger though. Okay.
Yeah.
I kind of think you're a pussy if you need to crush your hunger in prep because I did all my preps without it and I got to be hungry. And I think that's what separates hardcore bodybuilders from just everybody else. So, but I do use it. I'm not going to lie. I do absolutely do use it, but I like it for the insulin sensitizing effects. I like it for, I think retatrutide is great for maintaining muscle mass while using it, while also being in a deficit. Um, what else? Oh, I've been big on mirabegrin. I don't know if you're familiar with that drug.
Oh, I don't.
Okay,
It,
so
it, it is like a different kind of clenbuterol, like a newer version, no? Okay, because I
no, so
was watching something from the Vigorous Stiff. I thought that might be it.
it could be considered a chemical cousin, I guess, but it's not. It's never been used for, say, asthma or fat burning or anything like that. Mirabegrin is a drug that is prescribed to people for overactive bladders. So let's say you're
Oh,
a guy that gets up in the middle of the night like 3 times to take a leak, and it's just disrupting your sleep, right? They would have you on this drug because what it does is it's a beta 3 agonist and it relaxes the smooth muscle tissue, particularly in the bladder, so that the bladder can expand more without giving you that urge or that signal to wake up and go take a leak. So it's actually a really good thing for guys that drink a lot of water like we do and have to get up and piss 2 to 3 times a night. So that's kind of right why I originally started using it for myself. And then I started researching a little bit more into it activates brown adipose tissue, which is kind of
yeah.
a low level background fat burner. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to start incorporating this in other preps because I actually saw some fat loss from it. And I have several other people using it as well. So is it is it as strong as Clen or is it like this massive fat burner? No, but it has very little side effects or none that I can glean. And to me, it's like all these little things that like one plus one plus one. Like if you can take these little 1% difference makers, it's going to add up to something decent, right? Um, I do like to also incorporate MOTS-C. Um, this isn't a standard for everyone, but if let's say we're having a little bit of trouble with someone with the conventional traditional stuff, I might say, okay, let's run something like between 2 and 5 milligrams of MOTS-C 3 days a week for say 3 weeks in a row, and let's see what happens. And typically, we'll see a nice little buzz off of that. 5 amino 1 MQ. I used it years ago. I didn't see anything out of it. Turns out I was just using much too low of a dose. And
Oh,
now, yeah, now I'm much more. It's kind of funny. Like there's a lot of these compounds that I tried years ago, and now they're kind of come back into the market, and it's like, oh no, wait, you just need to take 10 times what you were taking before, and
yeah.
you're actually seeing the results, right? So yeah, the 5 amino is good. Here's this isn't a drug related thing, but are you familiar with the sugar fast?
Yeah. There's a new trend, but yeah. Know
So
how
it's
what is
it
on? Yeah.
so if you got someone that's stuck, I think it's a great idea to try to incorporate it for 5 to 6 days. It activates the FGF21 pathway.
Yeah.
I've been doing it with a lot of people lately, and I'm talking within 2 to 3 days, they're down 5, 6, 7 pounds. And now, thing is, it's really hard to get that amount of fruit and sugar into somebody that's like a super heavyweight bodybuilder that's used to 4,000 calories, right? That's a
Yeah.
lot of grams of sugar and thus a lot of grams of fruit. Um, but for my ladies, it's working out really, really well. I have been using it with some guys, and I have yet to see someone not drop at least 4 to 5 pounds in 6 days of doing it, and then going right back to a traditional diet.
Yeah. It is a kind of mitochondrial upregulated trick because it
Yeah.
is basically working like all of these peptides just to upregulate the like
The
the
FGF21
yes,
pathway.
yes, the
And it
neurons, like upregulation in the mitochondria. So it's really great for that.
Well, and it makes sense too because when we're constantly with our higher protein diet, specifically with isoleucine, we're constantly activating mTOR, the mammalian target of rapamycin pathway, which is an anabolism pathway, right? It's direct stimulator of muscle protein synthesis. So it puts your body into a building phase, right? So this diet, it just puts yourself into a catabolic state in a sense, while supporting your caloric needs. And honestly, 5, 6 days of no amino acids is really not long enough to lose a bunch of muscle, as long as you keep
Yes,
training, you know. I think if you were to
yeah.
do this extended for a long time, like 3, 4, 5+ weeks, yeah, I think that's a recipe to burn your muscle off for sure. But I think using it in these little bursts is a great way to fast track fat loss and get you back on track and maybe get you a little bit ahead.
You know who's fasting for a long, long times right now? Roman Fritz, and he is not losing any muscle. He has one day in the week, if I recall correctly, that he is just basically eating nothing.
Really?
Because yeah, because he is eating like 1,500 carbs daily for most of the time because he's training twice a day, and I believe that he is doing like a 1 week fast, 1 day fast during the week, just to
Okay.
keep his like ball movements like like clearance proper
Yeah.
and stuff like that because he's eating a shit ton of food, and I haven't seen he is losing muscle.
You know, with him too, because I talked to him maybe 6 or 7 months ago on Instagram about he had messaged me about tendonitis because he was having some crazy intense tendonitis, and of course I think it's because he was training twice a day. You know, you're
Yeah.
using those joints over and over again, but and I'm wondering if maybe he thought, okay, I'm going to incorporate this day-long fast to help really lower body inflammation on top of helping the gut health. So, I mean, fasting is a great thing. I don't think it's something that like I don't program into people's diets like once a week you're doing a fast, but with like my super heavyweight guys that are just constantly eating food, but when we get to a point where they're like, hey, dude, I can't eat another day. I'm like, great, let's do a full day long fast. Give your digestive system a break, hit a little reset button, and let's try eating again the following day and see how it goes. And usually it helps them out big time. Just having a coach tell you it's okay to take one day off of eating, because imagine this, or I know you've probably gone through this when you're in your off season at your peak caloric consumption, right? And you're getting to that meal five or meal four or whatever, and you're like, you don't even want to look at it, right? Or even worse, you wake up in the morning and you don't even want to eat meal one because you're just like, I'm so full. So then
Never happened.
your appetite is what? It never happened for you?
Never happened. Yeah,
Get out of here. Okay. Well, plenty of guys go through this, and then
I
you
know, I
start to
know.
you develop guilt of like, oh, I'm skipping a meal. Like I'm not a bodybuilder anymore. I'm a loser. I'm cheating, right? Um, but having a coach tell you like, no, we'll do this strategically for one day. Let's give your gut a break. And okay, you lose 2 to 3 pounds of inflammation. You have some good bowel movements, and you feel empty again. Well, now you're ready to go eat. So I think it's helpful.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, we have to come back to that because we should just make a one big podcast about crazy things in bodybuilding because we could talk for for an hour. But I've asked you about what do you use, but I need to be specific. When do you start to incorporate it? Because
Okay.
there's a guys who started right away with the clan. There's a guys who using it maybe only at the end of the prep. And where's the best time for your perfect scenario peak like a contest prep
I gotcha.
guide? Yeah,
Yeah, I mean the most perfect scenario would be never having to use clenbuterol, right? It'd be the
of
diet is
course.
just working so well. They don't need any beta 2 agonist stimulation. They don't need any thermogenics whatsoever. But I mean, I would say it's so individual. There's some guys where 2 weeks into their diet, maybe 18 weeks out, okay, let's throw some clen in. And typically what I'll do is I'll start them at 40 micrograms. And again, it depends on the size, but let's say we're talking about a super heavyweight. I'll do like 5 days at 40 mics, and then I'll do 5 days at 80 mics, and then I'll do 5 more days at 120, and then I'll take about 6 to 8 days off, and then we might start that process over again. Um, and I would say that's fairly standard. Sometimes with people though, like if we're on 40 micrograms, and they're dropping, I'm going to say, okay, stay on that. And then we might just titrate up to 60 micrograms when they're not seeing progress anymore. But I do oftentimes do that quick, 15-day, go from 40 to 120 micrograms. Let's try to get like a good 6 to 8 pounds off real quick. And so yeah, I do incorporate that a lot. And then like I do think you need to take a good 6 to 7 days off of clenbuterol from time to time. So to upregulate your receptors.
Okay. I was seeing cool studies that showed that actually the upregulation of the receptors in the adipose tissue is never happened. It's only in the
Never
muscle.
needs.
Never needs, yeah. It's only in the muscle. That's why you're stopped to have those shaky hands and stuff like that after because the body is just getting used to it. So maybe it's good to use this or some meds like to help with clearance of those receptors with the girls because the girls is actually working on a muscle, it could be anti-catabolic for them. For men, not exactly, but for the fat
Yeah,
loss,
I'm gonna
it
say that's
shows
probably
up.
where I'm still a little
Yeah,
antiquated, or I guess it's still kind of ingrained in my head a little bit. But the other thing is, like, I don't want someone to be used to what I don't want them to be so down-regulated to the sense where like 120 micrograms of clen just kept in there, they don't even feel it. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah,
that's mainly the only reason I do take a break. But I have seen those same studies about the adipose tissue. I'm just still, I guess, set in my ways
gotcha.
because it's always worked, and it's nice to not take a pill for a couple days.
Definitely.
I mean, I
Okay.
remember like when you're in prep, you add up, you're like, okay, I've taken 17 different drugs today. You know what I mean? You're like, how much more do I got to take to get to stage?
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes it's really bizarre if I loaded up my cup in the morning and I watching it like from the distance. Sometimes I am thinking.
Hmm.
Is it really needed to take all of this shit? But then I just took it.
It's funny though. I got a classic pro, and he told me like no tren. He didn't want to use tren, and he was already at the weight cap. At about I knew he was going to be at the weight cap. Oh no, sorry. I knew he was going to be 20 pounds over the weight cap, already in shape. So we use so little PEDs with him and all the traditional stuff we're talking about. I mean, when I say just a little bit of test and Masteron, and then like 10 days of Winstrol and 10 days of very like 25 milligrams of Proviron. Um, that was all we took for this guy to get him into a show because he made weight by zero point 0.1 pound at the last minute that you could weigh in for the show. So he didn't have any room to spare, unfortunately.
Isn't that Urs?
You gotta think that would have had to been him too, right? But no, I do not coach
Definitely.
hers. I would love to
Yeah.
coach hers.
Yeah, especially now.
We did
There's
our
no limits.
his first show in the States. We competed together at the Tampa Pro, and
Ooh.
he is the way he looks online and the way he is just as happy and bubbly and nice and he's just a nice guy. It was fun to see him backstage, and it's fun to see how good he looked backstage, and then see it, on stage and see how he's developed over the years. But yeah, no, we competed together in 2021 when he won the Tampa Pro, and that was his first trip to the Olympia, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I have a cool photo with Urs when we show our legs.
Oh yeah,
So and my legs are looking really decent out at this
okay.
photo. So yeah, I was really happy that I have that.
I'd be posting
Oh,
that picture on my Facebook and my Instagram page, and that'd be like my avatar.
Peanut into the first post.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, I remember that on that day I've also take a similar picture with Credo.
Okay.
And the first thing Credo told to me, he was, "Show me your legs." And I showed him legs, and he said, "Ah." They're tiny. Okay, let's make a photo.
No way he did that. What a dick move, though. You know
No,
what I'm
no, no,
saying?
no. He was
He was
joking. He
kidding.
was
He was
joking.
oh,
Yeah,
okay, okay,
he
okay,
was kidding, but he just
okay.
wanted to check if, for some reason, maybe I have bigger legs than him. That he's
Yeah,
not gonna take the photo.
yeah,
No, he's a really cool guy. He's a really
yeah.
cool
That's
guy.
good. That's good.
Okay, so going next. When it comes to the cardio, do you like to use more cardio and more food, or less cardio but less food with you guys?
Man, it's again, that's so dependent on the person, right? Because if you get a feel for your client and they tell you, hey, I don't care about food, like take it away, you know, then you're like, okay, cool. We could probably get by with less cardio. Some guys, they always want to feel somewhat full or that they're eating a decent amount. So you just say, hey, we're going to be doing more cardio. What I
But
like to do is go back and forth between steady state and hit. So I'll do, a period of time until I think that the steady state isn't working anymore and I've ramped it up in minutes. And then at some point I'm probably going to swap hit cardio in for maybe 2 to 3 weeks tops. And then I'll put the steady state back in. There are some extreme cases where we got to use hit and steady state sometimes in the same session. I could think of one guy, he had to do 15 rounds of hit and then another 35 minutes of steady state afterwards, twice a day, for him to get his ass in shape. So sometimes you got to do some extreme things.
yeah, definitely. But if we gonna to assess like a perfect scenario, you like to feed them more and do more activities, or maybe less food but less activities, just to maybe prevent some loss of the tissue or
Yeah.
anything.
So if I got a guy with a bigger midsection, some gut distension, I'm gonna want to err on the side of less food and more and less cardio. If it's a guy who's got a nice midsection, I'm not. I'm gonna pull the food and I'm gonna make them do cardio. Yeah. Or I'm sorry, I'm gonna feed them and pull
Yeah,
pull probably cardio back a little bit. Do the opposite. Yeah.
yeah. That's there's a logical
Yeah,
approach to
I mean,
that.
I mean, here's the thing, and I think this point can't be overstated enough, is that your midsection is so key in bodybuilding. And you don't see that. It doesn't matter in the gym, right? You wear a tank top and you got crazy delts and arms and stuff. Everyone's like, oh, look how big that guy is. But if he's got a big midsection and gets on stage, the judges are just putting him off to the side.
Yeah,
Versus maybe a guy doesn't look as impressive in just his tank top, but when he's on stage in front of the judges, he's got that nice tight midsection. That guy's moving up. I mean, there's a reason why Bumstead and Terrence are like such good, and Mike are such good classic performers.
yeah,
Their midsections are like this compared to their shoulder ratio.
yeah, yeah, definitely. But the building is all about the ratios. So if
Big
you
time.
screw at your waist, you're probably done forever. The perfect example here will be Jordan Peters. I don't want to shit on him just because
Yeah.
I think he's a crazy competitor, and I love his approach, and I love him like as a bodybuilder. And I don't think
Hmm.
there's many guys out there who has better like a work
Work
capacity
ethic.
and even work ethic than him. But he thought himself that he screwed his midsection,
Yeah.
and he's right now just probably he won't do it again if he could, but
Yeah. I mean, I think for him, there was a point where his musculature was just so great and his midsection was still good enough. But then he crossed that point where he just got huge and the midsection just kind of went with it. And yeah, he's probably kicking himself a little bit because I think he probably could have been a decent pro, competing on the pro stage. But yeah, man, everything angles matter. Everything matters on stage. It's everything but calves now. No one cares about calves anymore.
yet the best bodybuilders have still great calves.
Oh yeah,
Even
for sure.
Samson
Oh yeah. Yeah.
have
Yeah.
great calves. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you prefer to do with your guys, like cheat meals or refeeds, like control refeeds that they have this amount of carbs, this amount of fats, this amount of protein, or maybe free for all, eat whatever you want
Yeah.
as long as you want it.
Controlled refeeds, 100%. Maybe as we get towards the end and you're already in shape, like if you're an athlete that's in shape at 4 weeks out, I'm going to give you a free meal, and I'm going to tell you what to eat though. I'm going to say, burger and fries, or X amount of sushi, or like a steak and potato, or something that maybe is off plan. I'm going to tell you what to eat, but typically it's always it's going to be controlled macros. Because I mean, here's the thing, and I remember being a guy in my first, or one of my preps, and getting my first cheat meal. And yeah, I fucking overate. I had donuts on the way to a dinner where I had a burger and fries, and then I had two desserts on the way home. And guess what? Now I got to make up for that. I didn't just get a good response, I got a negative response from it because I overate, specifically with fats. Um, I find that, like, if you're doing a cheat meal, stick with the carbohydrates typically. It's when you incorporate high carbohydrates with an excessive amounts of fats, which are now slowing down your digestion. Well, now it's going to take 2 to 3 days for your coach to really be able to analyze what that meal did for you. Was it positive? Was it negative? Your digestion slowed. Now you don't want to train as hard because I don't know about you, but if I've eaten a lot of fats that are not on my plan, and then I try to go and do like heavy leg press or hack squats, it just don't feel right. My gut's bloated. So yeah, I'm much bigger on controlled refeeds, given specific numbers, and usually I'll even put like, okay, I'll actually write out their whole meal plan for them again and tell them exactly where I want to put those carbohydrates or fats.
Right, right. Yeah, definitely. Those cheat meals are tricky just because, like you said, the first thing is fat, and most often it is trans fat, to be honest, because they are eating shit ton of burgers, frying fries, and stuff like that. So there's a trans fat in this, and this is
Yes.
worsening your insulin sensitivity right away. It's like
Hmm.
the response after this overeat the next day is probably really really huge on your insulin sensitivity for a couple of days, actually, where studies
Hmm.
shown. And on top of that, you're probably going to sleep shitty that
Yep.
day. And the studies as well shown that even one night that you're sleeping not well, it could decrease your insulin sensitivity for another day for about 30 to 40% even.
Yep.
So you have a compounding effect that's going to destroy you for the next 3 to 4 days after
Yeah.
that overeat. So definitely, I'm a huge refeed guy,
Yeah.
not those cheat meal guy. Okay,
What do
so
you like to
yeah,
use for refeed foods?
same food, but more.
Yeah, I'll do the same, but I might because you want to give the athlete a little bit of mental relief. So sometimes I'll be like, okay, we can add in a little bit of a rice-based cereal if we're not using that, or I'll incorporate more fruits that we haven't had in a while because I like to get fruits in as much as possible to try to get more nutrients. Um, Sometimes what else we use? I might incorporate a little more honey instead of just adding more rice on top of it. I'll throw in some honey. Um, but yeah, generally I try to use the same foods, but maybe add a little bit of like extras in the form of fruit, honey, dates, stuff like that.
Yeah, I've used everything that you just said just because I have no problem with using something like rice-based cereal, or even a regular cereal if guy can tolerate it very well. Even
Yeah.
to the almost day to the show, if there's no sign of
Yep.
like brewiness or anything like inflammation or stuff like that, they're still using bread with me. They could use cheese if they tolerate it well, especially here in Poland. We have really good lactose tolerance because we are eating milk
Oh,
for our entire life. So most of the guys, there's a little, probably a few people who can't to tolerate lactose here in Poland. So actually, this
okay.
is pretty safe to use. And sometimes I just make them do something like homemade burgers with a
Yep.
lean turkey, just bread buns and some free fat cheese and stuff like that. So like those kind of things. But there's probably all of those things in their diet already. So they're just free to use whatever they want as long as they stick to the macros, like I said.
Mm.
And I said macros. I am not counting like with an application or something like that. I'm using something similar to a guy that I am not gonna tell you the name
Mhm.
of it. The Chopon in Nutrition.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You
Talking
know
about,
the
talking about
yeah,
Justin?
Justin Harris. Yes, yes.
Yes, Justin Harris.
So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm counting the same as him. So just like proper. uh, carbs, fats, and stuff like that, just from the meal sources that they have on their meal plan, so they could bump it up whatever they feel like to eat. And most of the times is the perfect scenario, just because they are eating whatever they want and they are happy and don't have any cravings because they could
Yeah.
eat like bread or stuff like that. So this is something that I believe, if there's on your plan something that you can stick to for entire life,
Yeah.
this is probably not a good plan for you, because no
I
one
agree.
likes to do something for 6 weeks just to get through it. This is like shitty way of
Yeah.
living.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, so in Poland, you guys drink milk like in the off season? Do you drink regular milk?
No,
No.
most of the
Okay,
guys
good.
not drinking the milk, because actually this is not source of anything. Probably
Yeah.
this is like a carb source, the milk.
Gotcha. Because
Yeah.
because sometimes, people will ask like, "Hey, can I throw milk in my protein shake?" And when I was a kid growing up, that's what we did is we threw milk in there, right? To make it, I guess, a little creamier. But you got to think the protein shakes back then were like sawdust, dude. They were garbage. 20, 25 years ago, it was almost inedible. Trying to mix it with water, it would separate right out and you're swallowing powder. But okay, but you guys can still incorporate like
Let-
cheese, fat-free
uh,
cheese and stuff.
yeah, I would say like that. The fitness guys, like watching the fitness industry, all of those guys, probably the young kids and stuff like that, using milk to their protein. But
Gotcha.
bodybuilders here, no matter if you're hardcore or not, you're probably using just the water, just because it's
Gotcha.
just a waste of calories for me. I would
I agree.
rather use 10 grams more rice than
Yeah,
100 milliliters of milk, to be honest.
I
So yeah.
agree.
So let's say I'm ready. I am peeled to the bone. We are 7, 10, 14 days out, whatever you like.
Mhm.
Uh, you says that you're probably gonna cut the GH like 2 weeks before, unless I am not showing any sign of loading or holding the water. So this we have covered. But what about the test and injectables in general? Do you pull it out
Sure.
a week before the show, maybe a longer, or maybe you just leave it till the day of the show?
Okay. Yeah. So, I start to bring testosterone down. Like if we were on, let's just say an example, 100 milligrams a day at 4 weeks out. At 2 weeks out, I'm probably going to cut it down to 75 milligrams a day, and I'm going to up your DHT a little bit. I'm probably going to increase that. If I'm pulling 25, I might add 25 milligrams of Masteron in, to make that a little bit of a different ratio. But then in terms of PEDs, I usually pull the testosterone. If let's say it's a Saturday show, I'm going to pull the testosterone out on, and we're using test propionate usually. I'm going to pull that out probably on the Monday before the show, and then I'm going to pull out the Tren and the Masteron on Tuesday before the show. And then on Wednesday, I'm probably going to bring your Winstrol up. Let's just say we were using 50 to 75 milligrams. I'm probably going to bring that up to 100 or even 150 milligrams. And then I'm also going to bring Proviron up to about 150 milligrams over those last 3 days. And then Halotestin, we're probably going to stay right at 30 milligrams a day, maybe 20. And then if I'm using anything else to help load, like say injectable Superdrol, I'm probably going to use that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday leading into the show. Um, I think that covers most everything.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. Great. So, how long before you start to leveling up the sodium intake, the water intake, and maybe potassium intake on the diet before the show? Because as we both know, there are guys who still not tracking their fluids, so we probably have to tell them how
Yeah.
much they need to drink before the show.
So usually about 6 weeks out, I start saying, "Hey, so you're drinking your 7 liters of water, right?" And just to get a verbal yes, like, okay, let's make sure it's at exactly 7 liters a day. Um, if it's someone that, like, because I see a lot of my clients locally, and I'm like, guy's never drinking water, I'll probably hammer him a little bit more, and I'll be like, "Are you really drinking whatever I want you to drink?" Well, I do this, I do that. It turns out they're only drinking 4 liters of water a day.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, for you over these last 10 days, I want you to bump your water up to 5.5 liters, something like that, maybe six, and we'll take it from there. Typically, though, if I want an athlete to look show ready the Saturday before the show, right? So that I need to do as little manipulation as possible. In my mind, if I can do that, then my goal is only to get you about 5% fuller and 5% drier. And then that's going to be a winning stage look because you can never be 100% full or 100% dry at the same time. And different
Yeah.
athletes have different characteristics. Like so and so athlete might look better if he's a little bit on the flatter side, right? And extra dry. Whereas another athlete might look a little bit better in the judge's eyes if he's a little bit fuller and not necessarily as dry, right? So I try to take all that into account, and I don't have like a one size fits all for everybody. But typically with water, we probably pushed it up an extra liter over those last 10 days. And then we get to the point where I'm going to keep them drinking that right through Thursday. And then I'm going to pull it, not pull it, I'm going to cut it back on Friday at some point. And that point is literally when I'm looking at them, because I'm looking at their pictures every meal. And I'll say, okay, at this point, what I want you to do is every time you take a leak, I want you to put 300 mLs back of water back in your body, and no water with meals. Otherwise, no water, other than like a sip of water to get your pills down. I just want you every time you take a leak, whether it's throughout the day to day or whether it's throughout the night when you get up to take a leak, just put another 300 or whatever that amount is back into the body. I do this with women too. And I usually find that allows them to hold the look so that we're not playing this game of like, oh, now you're holding water, or oh shoot, now you're really dry, but you're flat. It usually maintains a really nice look throughout the whole last 36 hours going into the show. And that's typically how I do it.
Great, great. What about the cutting of the water? Do you like to cut it completely for some people, or you never ever cut it?
I can't think of anybody in the last 2 years that I've cut water completely. It's usually, like I just told you, it's usually like, okay, you're a bigger guy, you're taking bigger leaks, you're going to the bathroom. So I'll say, okay, maybe I might say, okay, every time you take a piss, I want 350 mLs of water. Whereas maybe a smaller guy, it might be 225 mLs of water back in. Okay, and that's whether using diuretics or not. Usually there might be a little bit of diazide involved there. Very very small doses, but yeah, no, for me it's like if I've done my job right, you already look how I want you to look the Friday or Saturday before the show. And it's really just these micro changes. And honestly, it has saved me a lot of, I guess, time and mental anguish of trying to figure out how do I fix a situation if we're ready a week out. And I really don't have to do much manipulating with water other than just drop it a little bit the day before the show.
Yeah. You know what I ask? Because you've before mentioned about Carlos Thomas Jr. And I know that Bailey Farrell, I don't know if I say it correctly, but
Yeah.
there's a guy who, yeah, Bailey, he's actually like the same stuff because most of the bad guys, let's say it like that. I am not gonna looking for a better word are tends to holding more water.
Yeah.
Just they have tendency to have a little bit more thickened skin and
Hmm.
holding a little bit more of water. And I know that Bailey sometimes tell that he needs to do drastic things, like use a lot of diuretics or maybe like cut a water to the point that's almost non-existing. And I'm wondering that the logical sense will says that cutting water will probably make you holding a little bit more of
Yeah.
water, to be
Hmm.
honest. But in those cases, maybe there is a reason to do something like that. And maybe you just this is I am asking more not for those people on the general side because
Well,
for those people we probably not even touch the water. But for those hardcore like examples, do you have a guy that you have to pull out all of the water like a night before, or maybe on a show day that he is not drinking at all?
um, I can't think of anything I've had, but any guys but on those examples, here's my advice to those guys. Guys with that thicker skin, we call it seal skin, right? Kind of, and
Yeah,
typically it's going to be in your black gentlemen, right? That black guys typically have a little bit higher collagen synthesis levels in their skin compared to our less, I guess, guys like us, right? And
yeah,
so my advice to those guys is go tanning every day during prep. You're a black guy, you're going tanning. I know it makes no sense, but we're not doing it to get color. We're doing it to try to use the UV rays to break down some of that collagen to thin the skin out a little bit. Okay. The other thing is the compounds that you choose. I'm probably not going to have a guy like that using growth hormone at all during prep. I know I'm breaking the rules here, right? No growth hormone. I'm probably not going to have him use growth hormone, or if I do, I might just add one dose in the morning of the show. I'm probably not going to be using as much primobolan or anavar, which have a little bit more prevalence for collagen synthesis over some of the other PEDs we can use at all, not just during contest prep, but during the whole year. And the whole idea here is to try to put their body in a state where they're not making or they're not repleting or regenerating collagen at the same rate that they were before to try to thin the skin out a little bit. Because it's not like guys like Carlos aren't getting in shape, you know. It's that the skin's a little bit thicker than the average guy, and then they're holding a little bit more water than the average guy. So I think if you get the skin a little bit thinner, it's going to be a lot easier to manage to see what's happening in front of you in terms of, do we need to pull water? Do we need to increase more flushing? Do we need to use more diuretic? Whatever it might be, you know?
Now I'm really curious because you've told about not using a GH with the guys like Carlos, and I know that Carlos is working with John Jewett right now. And actually, I am after the curse of like J3U, and John is actually not believing in GH taking the skin. So I am wondering if they are using GH or not.
I mean,
Have
I
to
guess we'll find
ask
out, you
him.
know? Yeah, we'll find out. I guess I don't know what show they're going to do. Because I did a consult with Carlos maybe 4 or 5 months ago, probably before he hooked up with John. And that was my advice to him. That what I just told you was the tanning, stay away from certain compounds like GH, and try to get that skin thinner. You know, I think that would yield a better look for him. So,
I am still not don't know what is my stand on the GH in that terms, just because uh, I don't have any reason to think that it's thickening the skin, but then I don't have the reason to not thinking like that either.
yeah. Well, look at it
So
this way.
it's
I
really
mean,
hard.
if you look at the majority of that, like I use that term seal skin, where it's just a little bit thicker. I see that more prevalent in guys with darker skin tones, like black guys. Okay, more
Yeah,
so than like your straight Caucasian, you know, Vikings, right? Vikings have like
yeah.
real thin skin, right?
Peeled, yeah.
Peeled. Like you might have two guys that are roughly the same level of body fat, but one looks like he's 3 to 4 weeks out. The other guy looks like he's ready. And I think a lot of that has to do with the skin thickness. And I think a lot of that has to do with collagen. So I'm not going to say that I just don't want to add any compound that's going to maintain. I want to try to break down that collagen with guys like that. So, I mean, here's the thing: we're in a wacky sport, right? We do extreme things, and it might be an extreme idea, and it might be completely wrong. I'm
Yeah,
completely open to my thought process being wrong, but you know. There was the first guy that put synthol into his arms. You right? There was the first guy that
yeah.
put Nolotil into his shoulders to make him pumped up. So there's always like a first in everything. And someone just had this idea to try something. Like you're familiar with Dan Duchesne, right?
Of course.
Okay, so he was one of the first guys that started using insulin with his guys, and he tried it out on himself to see what would happen if you injected 10 units of insulin, right? So, I'm not going to say I'm like this big pioneer, but I think with our thinking in our sport, we're always trying to find an upper edge. We're always trying to figure out how to break through barriers, and a lot of it just comes from taking conventional thinking and then taking it a step further.
Man, I am the first who says that I love it because I am the guy who is still looking for those tiny pushes in the or the cracks in the matrix. To be
Yeah, man.
honest, I still believe that doing something like carb cycling and doing like something like fasted cardio with using lipolytic like compounds and stuff like that could burn more fat,
Me
could
too.
yield to a better condition and stuff like that, even though the science are not supporting it at all. But I am still like in those 70, 80, 90s bodybuilding mindset and
Well,
doing those crazy things. I think that works.
one of the best things my friend John Meadows said, okay, late great John Meadows was, I'm glad I didn't wait for science to finally come around and prove what I already knew was true.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Like, so if you're doing things, and even if you're only seeing results anecdotally, I don't care what any science paper says. I'm going to keep doing it, you know?
yeah. The cool thing is that for the example is a protein. Like 5 years ago, 7 years ago, there was idea that 1.6 grams
Mm,
of protein for a kilo is enough. Right
yeah.
now, they are changing their thinking, and they think that 2 grams, 2.5 grams is
Hmm.
probably a better idea.
Hmm.
I bet that we need to wait probably more, not no more than 5 to 10 years, and they are starting to think that maybe a 3 grams is going to be a little bit better and stuff
You
like
know,
that. Yeah,
on that note too, knowing, there's research and it's great. It's always important to look at who's funding the research or who's the lobbying group behind the research because,
no,
like in our country, in America at least, there was a massive, massive grain lobby, right? That tried to tell everyone that fats were absolutely horrible. You didn't need to have as much protein. And we have this false food guide pyramid that we still use to this day with carbs just being this massive thing, 10 servings of grains and drink all this juice and eat all these different things. It's just understanding that data can be manipulated based off who's paying for the data to be
mm,
done, you know?
yeah, of course, and obviously, no one's gonna test the superhumans like us.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're not a population group that gets
Yeah,
tested.
yeah, we
But I
are
mean,
working on a different physiology, to be honest.
well, here's a prime example. Back in what is it, the 1970s or 80s, the study showed that anabolic steroids do not produce muscle gain
Yeah,
or any ergogenic benefit whatsoever. Okay,
yeah,
like our population group seems to know a little differently, and by default, we are a very long-term case study, not with the greatest parameters or the greatest um, uh, double-blind, negative placebos or anything,
yeah,
but we know that taking extra testosterone makes you more muscular and stronger. We know that adding tren makes you more muscular and voluminous. We know GH does this. We know insulin. So it's like we are a good population group to look at if we could find a way to control variables.
yeah. And obviously, the worst part is that the last end of your sentence is not possible in bodybuilding.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Okay,
true.
so what about diuretic use? Because you said that you probably gonna use a little bit of diazide at the end. And do you? I am not gonna say like to use it, but do you hesitate to use it, or you just think this is just a tool? If needed, is needed. If not, it's not.
Yeah, it's definitely a tool, but it's not my first move. My first move is what can we manipulate in terms of food, water, movement. Sometimes you think an athlete needs a diazide, but really it's like, no, 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 wait a minute. Go downstairs to the gym, the hotel gym, and just do like 3 sets of 15 for some side raises, some very light bench press, some arm curls, and then come back up and pose for me again. And you look at them, you're like, dude, the water's gone. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think thinking of everything as a tool. But I'll tell you, 10 years ago, it used to be I'll tell you what I used to do very stupidly. You get an athlete ready. Okay, take this 25 milligram diazide and go to bed. And then you hope that they look better in the morning, right? Well, now we know so much better. Over the years, it went from 25 milligrams to I'm going to use a 12.5 at a time and see what happens. And then it got down for me to 6.25. And now I'm literally doing microdosing of 3.0125 doses with particular meals and just monitoring and looking. So I would say that my diuretic use, while it wasn't even high before, has gone down drastically. And I'll tell you what, at North Americans, I had 4 athletes. Um, one a good heavyweight who got third, and then I also had a pro athlete competing that same day in Texas. Not one diuretic was used for any of those athletes.
Yeah.
So it's not a. I always bring them with me in case I feel like we need them, and I tell athletes to bring them, but it's never like written into their plan at a certain time. It's really based off what we're seeing with feedback.
Yeah, funny that you say that because you know what's the littlest dose I've took in my life of diazide
What's up?
was was 0.8 Like it was just a
Like a
just, yeah. I was working with Dominic Mutasio, Don Super Slice,
yeah, yeah. Me
and
and Dom are
I
friends.
yeah, I do believe that he just told me to take it just to peace my mind. I'm firm believer in that because he called me and told me exactly how to cut it to just take I microscope it, to
Yeah,
be honest.
yeah. I call that a smidge. Like
Yeah,
I say okay, I want you to break it up and take the smallest piece, and I call that just take a smidge. You know? Yeah.
yeah. That was crazy. Okay, so what is your preferable way of carving up a guy? I know that you said before that it is all going to be dependent on how the body reacted after those like amog you're doing over the whole contest prep. But
Hmm.
let's says that you find the way with me and or that you don't find the way with me because I've always it was different. Like one day I've looking better. One carbon up I was better the next day, then the 3 days after the loading, and you know what I mean. So
Okay,
we
so
just
you had
can't
no good
find the perfect
information.
way. Yeah,
Yeah,
no good
you had no good
information.
information to run off of. Okay, so usually over that final week, let's just say we're going to do a some version of a linear load where you know athletes fairly flat the Saturday before the show, nice and dry, looking pretty good. So I might just like slowly every day increase carbohydrates by 20%. So if they're eating 300 grams of carbs, I might bump an extra 60 grams of carbs on that Sunday. And then the next day, I might add another 60 grams of carbs. And I'll just monitor and kind of see to watch for a point where I feel like we're not looking better. We're kind of going backwards with the conditioning. Water, they're holding water now. Things are looking a little blurry. Um, but typically, I do like linear loads. I like to load up until Thursday, and then I like Friday to be a day where we pull back, meaning, you know, my whole thing is always small midsection on stage, and I talk to judges about this all the time. If we can make your abs and your waistline look smaller by eating a little less food on Friday, then that's my ideal scenario. It doesn't always work out that way because
Uh,
sometimes when you get an athlete and you start adding food in that final week and they wake up the next day and they're 2 pounds down. So then you add even more food and now they're down another pound and you're like,
yeah.
oh shoot, we really they're in a metabolism snowball here. We really need to start feeding some foods. And at that point I incorporate a lot more fats as well. Um, and but again, I do try to make Friday a little bit of a lighter day for food because I want them to have digestion intact, small midsection. And then if we need to go a little heavier on Saturday morning, I'll throw in some extra carbs at that first meal typically.
Okay. Okay. And no protein, like you said.
Yeah, no protein. I mean, if it's protein, it's like 1 ounce, 1 ounce of chicken, just so you feel like you're eating something with your rice.
Yeah.
Um, But yeah, a lot of times it's no protein. I'll tell you, back in the day, I was an idiot. When I first started, maybe 2012, it'd be like, all right, 6 ounces of chicken and, 250 grams of rice. And then I started thinking about it a little as I got a little bit older. And I'm like, why am I having eaten any protein? The only thing it's doing is slowing down your digestion at this point, and you're not building any muscle this day. So let's
Yeah.
pull the protein out.
I like to use some to because there is like a mild diuretic effect over the
Yeah,
protein, but it's
yeah,
just a some, like you said, just to keep their stomach not too flat. Like
yeah.
they think they eat something. Yeah.
I mean, I had one girl though. She's a pro, and she swore to me, she's like, "No, I do so well if I eat 12 ounces of protein for my last meal the night before the show." And I'm like, "Really?" And I just couldn't believe it, but I let her do it. And she won the show. So, I mean, it worked. She went to the Olympia, but it was kind of like one of those things where I'm like, okay, you're 100, 135, 140 pound female. You want to eat 12 ounces of steak the night before the show. And it was something that she had done with John Meadows as well. So I'm going to take their advice, and it did work.
Yeah. If it works, it works. No matter what was the mechanism of it, the outcome is the what we're looking for. So yeah.
Exactly.
So what about the what you know? Different story. I need to remanage the question. Do you
Yeah.
like to do like sometimes a junk food load, or you've always used only the sources that the guys was using throughout the whole like a contest prep?
I would say 95% of the time we're using the sources that we've used. Though, like let's say we get in a situation where we need to add more food and I don't want to add water, I might add like a sleeve of rice cakes in, on top of their regular meal. Or I might incorporate a little bit of honey or something like dates, something that's very easy to it's got a decent amount of calories for the small amount that it is. But 95 to 99% of time, it's using the same foods that we used all through prep. And a lot of times over that Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, it's the same exact meals. Like if chicken and rice works for you or chicken and cream of rice, we're doing chicken and cream of rice for 6 meals out of that day. And same thing on Saturday. Not much variety.
Okay. You said say same time on Saturday. So the next question was, what about the food on the show day? Do you like to still feed your guys the same meals, or you think that it's better to switch for maybe just a breakfast and then a couple cakes during the day, and that's it?
So yeah, it's going to be the same foods we've been using to load with. So, like I can think of like that same scenario, those athletes I had at North Americans in the pro show, it was all rice, cream of rice, and I think honey and rice cakes for all four of them because rice products typically work well for
Yeah.
everybody. Um, but yeah, no, it was literally the same foods, same thing on Saturday. It's usually, it always depends on what time the prejudging is, right? Because sometimes in the States here, you have like a pro prejudging that doesn't start until 12:30. And then other
Yeah.
shows, you might have one that starts at 8 o'clock because I've had that happen in the last month alone. So I'm thinking actually of a pro bikini athlete I had. Like one prejudging was 8 a.m. Another prejudging, she didn't get on stage until 2:15. So there's some variation there. Obviously, you're not feeding them the same amount on that 8 a.m. Prejudging as you are the 12, but the sources are exactly the same.
Okay. And what about the case of the 2 day show? Because in Poland we often have like something like a regionals in a Saturday, and then on Sunday we have like a pro qualifier, for example. So obviously you want it to be probably picked for both of those days because you probably like to win your regionals and then pro card.
Yeah. I haven't had that scenario in shit, probably 5 years because our nationals used to be 2 day shows, and then they've now switched it to where they just do the females on one day, the males on another day. But in those situations, right? So you get the athlete, and they're probably some level of dehydration for that first show. My first move is to rehydrate them enough to where, okay, we're getting their bowel movements again, we're getting a little bit of life back to their body because they're if they haven't been drinking from their regular water intake from say Friday 2 p.m. until Saturday evening at the finals for the qualifier. I think you need to rehydrate a little bit of water. And usually I'm probably going to go a liter and a half of water between then and bedtime. And then I'm probably just going to keep them on one or two clean meals, probably similar to what they were eating on Friday before the qualifier. And then Saturday, we're just going to do it all over again. But here's the thing, in a show like that, I'm probably going to be with them in person. So it's hard to say, like on paper, what I would do. It's probably more like a game time decision, meal by
Yeah.
meal, because, well, and here's the thing. If you know that your guy is going to win the class, like it's pretty apparent, there was seven in the class. He was in the middle the whole time. You're like, okay, we got this class. Now you start thinking, okay, how are we going to make the look better for the overall and how are we going to make the look better for tomorrow? So I think if you know that your guys, let's say he wasn't even in the top three, he's in the fourth. Well, I guess would he be able to do the pro qualifier the next day or no? Do you have to win your class over there?
No, you don't have to win it. You just need
Okay.
to pay for the
Oh, okay. Okay. So then I assume they probably only let like top five do it though.
the pro qualifier.
Yeah, like if you did the regional show on Saturday and then the pro qualifier Sunday, would if you didn't place top five in the regional part on Saturday, would they let you do the?
I believe that you still can
Oh,
compete for your card, but you have to win the pro qualifier to get your card. So
I
it
get
is
that.
it doesn't matter if you win it or not the
Oh,
day before because you
okay.
still can lose it. Yeah.
Okay. So you could win the regional and not get your pro card. You could lose to the guy that
No.
got third place or something. Okay, that
Yeah.
makes it interesting. We're a little different over here, so that's interesting. Okay, so I guess then the assessment needs to be done. If you have a guy, let's just say he got third place in the regional show, did he just get beat because the other guys are better, like more muscular, better shape, or did he get beat because he wasn't peaked right for this show? Okay. And then it becomes, okay, let's reverse engineer. Do we need to push more water? Do we need to pull more water back? Was he a little flat? Did he need more food and water? Did we overdo the diuretics? Did we not use enough? So that's where like all those, it's really hard to say like do this exactly because I
Yeah.
think if you have an athlete in those shows, you should be there with them. Okay. And in the hotel room, you're making a lot of those little changes based off what you're seeing as they're posing before every meal. Um, yeah, so it's hard to say exactly what to do there. I figured that maybe like over here, if you do a regional show, you have to get one or two, first or second, to qualify to go and do a pro qualifier. So, um, if you got second place and you're like, okay, we can get a little bit drier, and that was the reason why I didn't win first place. Okay, let's get a little bit drier. Let's bump above this guy. If you're a little flat, okay, we can fix that too. If you get beat by a guy that's just genetically better and he's more advanced than you, then I guess at that point I would go kitchen sink and I would swing for the fences and just let's throw everything at it and see if like there's something we can do in this magic here that will make you look bigger, rounder, fuller than you did the day before.
Okay, now I understand what you say that if you have to win, you obviously have to win the pro qualifier to get the pro card, but it is working a little bit different here just because the regionals is just the regionals, and this is not like it is not linked into the pro qualifier, but you have to win your pro qualifier like a class to be able to compete for the card.
Okay.
Like the overall. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? Yeah.
I gotcha.
So it's
Yeah.
probably working the same as at your place, but it is just
Well,
a different because we have the regionals. It's just the regional, so it's like a normal competition.
well, what's interesting though, so because in the States, there's very few, yeah, there's zero shows actually. There's a couple in Canada, but there's no shows where the regionals is the day before the pro qualifier. Like we have our national shows, right? There might be like one or two shows around the country right before that, but nothing the day before. It's all, you get qualified because you have to enter a show the Monday before you go and compete. You have to sign the paper that says you're going to compete.
Hmm.
So they make sure that all the regional shows and all the local shows are done at least 1 week before our national shows. So,
Oh,
and the
okay.
thing is, and it's a little confusing, right? Because like I was talking to one of my Australian guys, and they have their season A and their season B, where they have like the local shows, then the regional shows, and then the pro qualifiers, right? For us, we have local shows that run almost 12 months a year, and we have regional shows, which are like your upper level local shows that run all year. And then we also have pro qualifiers, like, we have Universe, we have North Americans, we have Nationals, we have USAs, we have the Olympia Amateur, we have the Arnold Amateur, we have, am I forgetting one? So we have like 5 or 6 opportunities to get a pro card over here in the States. Whereas I know other countries, there's like one season and then there's like one guy is getting a pro card pretty much every year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very
Here we have
competitive.
here we have a couple of the pro qualifiers and a shit ton of regionals that
Okay.
you can.
Okay.
Because you have to do regionals to compete outside the country, so
Gotcha.
we have like a lot of possibilities to make your the happens. Just to make sure that you can go outside the country and compete for the
Gotcha.
pro qualifiers outside. Okay, so we finished the competition. So what now? What after the show?
Yeah,
Do
it's
you?
actually well, it's funny you
Yeah.
bring this up because I actually teach a class on this now, about like post-show rebounding and how I think it's one of the most important parts of your prep. Sometimes we just get guys in shape just so we can ride a nice post-show rebound, right? But for me, based off where the athlete's mindset is at and where their health is at, I want to try to push a nice little rebound for 6 to 10 weeks. And I base it off of how long that is. I base it off of the feedback. Like, after you get a few meals in you after the show, you're feeling better. You kind of catch your second wind. But eventually, every athlete hits like the wall. They hit another
Yeah.
wall where it's like their joints are hurting. Maybe they're having trouble sleeping again. They have lack of desire to go to the gym. Or maybe just, maybe some psychological stuff is creeping up just because they've been so regimented for so long. To me, that's a sign to shut it down. But post show, I'm probably gonna this one I think might startle some people, but I like to keep trending for a little while. I like to do test, primo, and trend, or test, primo, NPP, or test master on an NPP, or test master and trend for a little bit longer. And I'm really big on going slow in the reverse, meaning my whole goal with all athletes is to keep them insulin sensitive and hungry for as long as possible. So you're not going to get a plan from me the day after the show that's going to double your carbs, for instance.
Yeah.
We're going to make these slow increases along the way. But yeah, I'm going to ride the PEDs out for about, I mean, it depends on the athlete. Could be 6 weeks, could be 10 weeks. And then I'm going to shut them down for like a 2 week deload. Kind of like I mentioned right before prep. I like to do a deload and a detox. And then we start their extended health phase for about another 6 to 8 weeks where we're using nothing but bioidentical hormones. So only testosterone, only GH, and only insulin. Um, and for females, progesterone and estradiol if needed. But during that phase, really the idea is just to let the food do the work. And again, like we led this podcast off, the training, like really fall in love with training again, and don't accept that because you're not running a lot of gear, you can't be
Yeah.
strong. Like I want you to be just as strong as you are, because post show, your muscles are going to get a lot stronger than your joints are, right? So right
Yeah.
after the show, I'm not pushing loads. I'm telling people a little bit more volume because I don't want anyone to tear a pec or tear a quad. That would be the worst thing for me. But then once we get to that extended health phase, you're usually about 8, 10 weeks post show. That's when you can really start pushing your loads again. And I want to see the athlete get strong.
Okay. So you've basically answered all my questions in once, to be honest. And you told that you're running like classes for post show. So it, it is like a only for now, or is just like periodically you just make some sort of seminars, or how it look like?
Yeah, so like basically when I have free time, or I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have Tuesday night free in 2 weeks. I make an Instagram post, and sometimes I invite another coach on with me to do this. To
Oh,
Yeah, because I find that there's good cross marketing, and maybe I reach an audience that I wouldn't normally reach by having them help me out and have them post it. And yeah, we do it's usually about an hour and a half long. And but yeah, I make an Instagram post basically. So anyone that's interested, just if you're interested, watch my stories, watch my posts, and you'll see when I hold the next one. We just had one last Tuesday night, and I'll probably do another one within the next 3 weeks here. So
okay, yeah, yeah. But I was asking just because I thought that maybe I leave a link down in the description box or something like that. But I'm gonna leave a link to all of your social media, Instagram as well. So if you guys are interested in delve into how to do a proper post-show period with Andrew, then you have to just click the notification bell on the Instagram, and you're gonna be informed about all of this upcoming seminars, and maybe you even hop on with some good collaboration coach that you're waiting for a long, long time if you are lucky. Yeah, so thank you for today, Andrew. I think that we cover up everything that we need to know about the contest prep diet, peak week, and coming out of the show, because you're basically uh, melted up with one peel of the information, and I don't want to pull a lot of it from you, because if you are running something like proper seminars, and you basically deserve to take some money out of it. So we just gonna uh, have to be happy from what you give us today, and it is more than enough for free, to be honest. So thank you for your time, and I hope that this second part and the first part is enough for people to get as deep as they need to, if they wanted to, for example, start to working with you, because I believe that if someone, it is basically 4 hours of information. So if someone are not familiar with what are you doing after 4 hours of podcast, they are probably not deserve to
Right?
work with you, because they need someone who's probably, I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know what they need, but not a coach. That's for sure.
Right. And if people are also interested in any of the stuff I'm talking about, I have two other podcasts. I'm on the Blood, Sweat, and Gear podcast on the Think Big Network, and then
And
I
also
have my own.
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on a podcast with me and Kyle Wilkes, and Kyle's gaining a lot of popularity. He coaches Nick Walker. We have a podcast together. We release episodes Thursday morning, 9 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah, I was hoping that he's gonna answer me, because he told me to remember myself on a WhatsApp, and he never answered me again.
I'll give him a
So
heads up.
yeah,
I'll tell him to
I
look.
yeah. I wasn't pushing him, because I know he has tough times lately with his showing and stuff, all the shit that happened, and right now is the Olympia time and stuff like that. So I don't want to push him, but I am gonna push him after the Olympia, probably, just because I think that Kyle is someone who could be a great, like a link between all of the podcasts I've done before and all of the new coaches, because he is like basically a new big thing with old thing mentality, and those kind of coaches I like the most.
Yeah, yeah,
And
he's
this is
good.
why I am happy that we have I have you right now, and not 2 years ago on those peak weeks and stuff like that, because I know that you are still learning new things, and those peptides and stuff like that. Probably 2 years ago, you tell me that basically it's crap, not use
Yeah,
it.
probably,
Yeah,
probably. Yeah,
I am believing that, because I was the same. I thought
yeah.
that GLP and stuff like that is for pussies, and right now I'm using it with a lot of my guys and myself as well. So
Yeah.
so yeah,
I
so
mean, it comes down to this. Like guys were able to get in shape before that stuff, but like anything, like say the automobile, before they made engines with 5 cylinders, they only had 3 cylinder engines. And then they realized, oh wait, we can make a 6 cylinder engine. So
yeah.
things advance, and when you get more tools, you can make the job a little bit easier. You can bring a slightly better look and hopefully advance the sport more and more.
Yeah, I do believe that we don't need anything, but we could use almost
Yes.
everything.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
So thank you once again. And if anyone is sticking with us to the end of this podcast, all of the information about the links and where you can find Andrew, as well as all of the podcast, I'm gonna link it down below. So you can support his podcast, because I believe that is from the newer ones. This is probably one of the best. I love. I don't know if I'm telling that to you or to. Oh my God,
Kyle.
not
Kyle?
Kyle, not
Oh,
Kyle.
oh,
The third
Phil?
one. Phil,
Phil.
yeah. Sorry, Phil, if you're watching this. Yeah,
So, well,
I
Phil's
was
not with
talking.
us anymore. Phil had some
Oh,
other he had some other projects he needed to put his time into. So, yeah.
okay, yeah.
But me,
Because Phil is a guy who I wanted to invite for at least 4 years right now, or 3 years, and he always get me off. But I am always coming back to him, and he's and
I'll
I.
I'll I'll put in a word for you too, because I talk to Phil every day. Like we're business partners in some things, and then
Yeah.
we're in plenty of group chats together. So,
Yeah, no, no. Phil is a very cool guy, and he's always answering me. But he's just a straight guy. If he don't have the time, or just don't want to do it right now, he just tell me straight that no,
yep.
man, not right now. maybe in the future, so hit me up in the future, and I am totally fine with that. I love it, to be honest, because I
Yeah.
like to, if someone is just straight like feel that he told me, no man, I don't want to do it right now, just
Yeah.
simply. I'm not doing stuff like, no, maybe not, maybe hit me in, you know what I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. Yeah. He gave it to you straight.
So I love feel for that, and I believe that there's gonna be a day that we finally gonna make it. So I'm just waiting for that day to come, and like all of those listeners, because I have a shit ton of messages to invite him, to invite Kyle, to invite uh, a lot of coaches, but it is just sometimes hard to do this.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
So
for
this is
sure.
why I am really thank you once again, just that you find
Absolutely,
some
my
time,
man.
because your man is just constantly going back to me in those in those messages. So yeah,
Right on.
okay. I'm not taking much more of your time, and we just finish it here. Over. Thank
All
you.
right. Thanks for having me, man. Thanks for having me. Great to talk to you.
See ya.
Bye bye.